Okay. Okay, good morning to everyone. I'm very happy to be here with Olivia Montuschi. She was the founder of the Donor Conceived Network. And hi, Olivia, thank you so much to be here. I'm really very happy that you are here to speak about donor conceived people also. Could you please tell me what the donor conception is and how you support the donor conception families?
Well, it's lovely to be talking to you this morning, Valentina. Thank you for inviting me. The Donor Conception Network was started nearly 30 years ago now by 5 families who all had children by donor conception and wanted to be open with them about that fact. But at that time, there were no materials available to be able to support them, and secrecy about donor conception was promoted by all clinics. Okay. So we set up the network, which is a charity, which means it's a non-profit making organization to support anyone who needs to use sperm, egg, or embryo donation to make their family.
Okay. And so who are your members? Are only donor conception families or also professionals?
We have families from all types, heterosexual couples, people who have been separated or divorced, unmarried couples, single women, same-sex couples, and professionals as members. Yes.
Okay, so as I was speaking before, in Italy, donor conception families are quite new because access to the IVF with the nation became legal only in 2014, so it's yesterday. And therefore, couples who decide to undertake this step have a lot of questions. One common question is, will I love a child even if I don't have a genetic bond with him, her? What would you answer to this question?
Yes, you're right. It is a very common question and a very understandable question as well. And I would love to say to you, oh, it's absolutely no problem. You know, yes, of course, you will love any child that comes along. And by and large, that is true, but it's also more complicated. It can depend very much on what is the meaning of genetics for you as a person.
Yeah.
You know, does genetics mean everything about family to you? Or does family extend beyond genetics? I mean, after all, if we have a partner, we love our partner very much, but we're not related genetically to them. In fact, that would be prohibited. So it's very clear that it is perfectly possible to love somebody that you're not genetically connected to. But it does depend very much on the meaning of genetics. And I think for some people, there is a longing to have a mini me, if you like, you know, a little person who is exactly like you know, who represents all your qualities.
Yeah.
And habits and so on. And I think for all parents, but particularly for donor conception parents, you need to be able to accept that this will be a person in their own right. And to be able to support them as that person, no matter what they look like or who they turn out to be. And that's a big question for prospective parents to think about.
Yeah, I think it's a really important. I completely agree what you said. And I think that sometimes people believe that the genetic link give you some guarantee. Okay, and I think that is not true. The genetic link doesn't guarantee anything about the relationship that you could have with your child.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that.
We go ahead with the next question. There is no conclusive evidence that telling how a donor consent person is born is better than not telling, but the Donor Conception Network offers some advice. Could you please let us know what is your position about this?
I think the fundamental principle on which the Donor Conception Network was based is that openness with children, that is sharing the information with them about being donor conceived, is their right. That it is respectful of them as the individuals that we've been talking about. And indeed, keeping that secret can be something that a child senses in the background. They know that there's something going on. They see possibly looks shared between their parents when the very, very common talk about resemblances comes up. And they know there's something going on, but they don't know what it is, but they know it's about them. This is not good for a child's self-esteem. Certainly when my husband and I had our children, which is an awfully long time ago now, we were very unusual in deciding to be open with them right from the start. And this is really because we just couldn't imagine keeping a secret of that sort at the heart of our family. We were sure that it would be very toxic.
Yeah.
You know, if we pushed it under the carpet, it would be bound to creep out in all sorts of unpleasant ways. So we were open right from the start, and our children have always told us that that was the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you. In Italy, couples are concentrated on their desire and very often do not think about the child's future questions. For example, couples may be scared by the fact that one day their child could search the donor.
Yeah.
What would you like to say to these couples?
I would say I understand your fears to start with. I do understand your fears, and I certainly would have been fearful of that myself at the beginning, all those years ago. But I think these days it is really important for prospective parents, actual parents, to be able to think from a child's point of view, to try and put yourself in the shoes of that child and think, isn't it right that they would want to know about that part of themselves that is not shared with the family that's raising them? Isn't it their right to do that? And we now know from years and years of our families in DC Network doing that, that absolutely does not change the relationship between their parents and them, because only a little bit of knowledge about child development tells us that children make attachments to the people who care for them, who share their emotional environment. And so wanting to look for their donor in the future is to do with them and them wanting to understand a little bit more about themselves, but it has nothing to do with the relationship between them and their parents. So it is nothing to fear, but I do understand having that fear.
Yeah, I understand. But I also think that if you are comfortable with the role of a parent, you don't have any fear if they could know in the future the donor, because the donor is a donor, but you remain a parent.
Yes, indeed.
Next question. It's a question that for Italy is still quite new when I'm talking about DNA companies, because many companies offer DNA testing.
Yes.
And a child in the future, and already adults now, could accidentally discover or find out after intentional research that she is a donor conceived person. And how is a DNA testing revolutioning the search to genetic connection by donor conceived children or adults in the future?
It is massively revolutionizing the world of donor conception. There's absolutely no doubt about that. People are making connections with their donor. They are making connections with half siblings. And I mean, if you know that you are donor conceived and you go into it intentionally, then that is one thing. Finding out when that was not what you were looking for. Maybe you were just doing some general genealogical research on your family, as people often like to do. It's a big hobby in the UK. I don't know about Italy.
Yeah, no, it's possible in Italy too. It is possible.
Yeah, yes, and so finding out that way is a very big shock, and we certainly know that some people are then confronting their parents about it, and some parents will then open up. Others will continue to deny, and that causes terrible, terrible rifts in families, and you know, a loss of trust.
Yeah,
trust is something very basic within a family. So DNA testing is absolutely revolutionizing the world, and indeed undermining any legislation as we have in the UK, you know, where we have the date of 2023 coming up very soon, when the first children with identifiable donors will be able to find out the names of their donor. But some people are doing DNA testing before this time.
Yeah.
Okay. So they get round the law.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the next question also about that, because in 2005, donor anonymity was abolished in UK, I've seen.
Yeah.
And the law was changed to allow children born through gamete donation to know their genetic origins when they reach the age of 18 years old. Why did the law change in your country in 2005 and you already... Yeah. And do you think that it would be better to have known donor in Italy as well? And what are the advantages and disadvantages about, you know, to become an open donor, you know, and to remove the anonymity of a donor?
Well, there's lots of parts to that question.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, really, the reason why anonymity for donors ended in the UK was because two donor-conceived adult, well, a donor-conceived adult and a donor-conceived child took their case to the High Court in the UK. And in a pre-hearing, they won their case, establishing that they had the right to the identity of their donor under the human rights law of right to family life. So the case was not continued. They were looking for access to records although it was known that the donor-conceived adults' records had already been destroyed.
Okay.
But in order to prevent that case from going further, the UK government decided to have a consultation about whether anonymity should end.
Okay.
And on the basis of that consultation, the, I think, very brave decision was made by the government of the time to end anonymity, to give rights to donor-conceived adults.
Okay.
So that's the answer to that particular question. But I think it established a very important principle of the right to know, that everybody has the right to know their origins.
This means also to inform the donor about this possibility. I mean, in the country where this anonymity is still legal, I think that is important to inform the donors that also if the law is anonymity, there is the anonymity in the future, we don't know how the situation is going to change, and also to inform them about DNA testing in any case.
Very, very much so. It's really, really important that all donors, no matter what the laws are in a country, are informed about the possibility of being found through DNA testing. That is vital that they are. Okay, what was the next?
Yes. What do you recommend to a couple that is starting this journey, and wishes to accept to the IVF with donation?
Sorry, there was another part to your previous question.
Okay. Okay. Do you think that it would be better to have a known donor in Italy as well?
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
Sorry.
That brings up the question of the difference between a known donor and an identifiable donor.
Yeah.
Our donors who are going to have their names revealed at 18 are identifiable donors.
Yeah.
We talk about known donors as being someone actually known to the recipient couple. So certainly in the UK, you are able to take a known donor who may be a sister of a woman needing egg donation, or the brother of a man needing sperm donation. You can bring them to the clinic. So the donor is known right from the beginning.
Okay.
And it's very interesting that donor-conceived adults are now saying that they feel that is the best sort of donation, known donation, rather than identifiable donation.
Okay.
So someone who can be a part, even if only a small part, of a child's life right from the beginning.
Okay.
And I think that's, I mean, even in the UK, where, you might say we are ahead of Italy in that is quite a challenging idea.
Okay. Yeah, because for Italy, it's really an idea that I think is too much. And now, I mean, right now.
For now. I understand.
So, if we go ahead with the next question that I was saying before, what do you recommend to a couple that is starting this journey? I mean, and wishes to access to IVF with donation, but they still have some doubt. What would you like to say to them?
Oh, well, I'd like to give them a hug to start with and say, I really understand that this is a difficult place to be. But I would encourage them to really think about the meaning of what they are doing for themselves, before they start researching clinics and success rates and, getting into that kind of game, if you like. And should we stay in Italy? Should we go abroad? Should we, think what it means to them personally and to address those issues first. Because I think the key to raising a child, a donor-conceived child well, is to have overcome most of your own issues about it first.
Yeah.
Now, you won't overcome all of them.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But having addressed most of those issues first, so that you can feel at least relatively confident and comfortable about moving ahead. And so you are then able to help your child feel proud about who they are and how they came to be.
Yeah.
But if you don't feel proud about it, if you are feeling shame and stigma about it, then sadly that is likely to be passed on to your children. And that's not good for kids, not good for anyone.
I totally agree. And that is something that I share with my patients when they are in the beginning. And that's something that I totally agree with you. And what are the prejudices, if any, that the donor consent person has to face? I mean, do you think that it will be easier for them in the future, or do you expect any new issues to come up in the future?
That's an interesting question to me, because in the UK, and I must just talk about the UK, and Italy may be different. I don't think there have ever been actual prejudices about donor-conceived people.
Okay.
There can be surprise. There can be, people can make comments that are kind of uneducated or ignorant, if you like, but not actual prejudice about it. And now I'm particularly talking there about children conceived to heterosexual couple parents. I think because they come from within a standard looking family, if you like, normal, in quotes. For children, a solo mother who has chosen to do it by herself, for same-sex couple families, there can be issues, but they are mostly to do with the family type and not to do with being donor conceived.
Okay.
That's what I have found, certainly in my recent research, talking with donor conceived teenagers. That those who came from the less usual family types, although of course those family types are increasingly becoming part of the normal picture, and the more they do, the more they are accepted. The less prejudice and ignorance there will be.
Yeah, I totally agree. Do you think that psychological counseling is useful to couples who are making this choice, this decision? And what is your experience with this type of support to couples into your network also? And
yes, I think having counseling is valuable for everyone, but I think there can be, interestingly enough, prejudice and stigma about having counseling. People think, they think there's something wrong with me, that that I'm not going to be a fit parent, that I'm going to need counseling, and so on. So it is counseling itself that needs to be destigmatized, if you like, to make that much more normal. Because I think no matter how much couples or anyone using donor conception feels, that they know all the questions, that they can, they can do this themselves.
Yeah.
Actually, it is enormously helpful just to work with somebody who is not emotionally involved with them and who can address in a kind but thoughtful way the difficult questions that maybe people are avoiding for themselves.
Yeah.
But actually they need to address before having a child in this way.
Yeah, I think it's a responsibility of the family to address
very much so.
Yes, to embrace this new life in a good way. I think.
Yes, absolutely. I truly support that.
Next question is, in Italy it's not so easy to find a donor consent person, and I found 2 of them, and they were born before 2004 is the year of the law with the IVF, because in 2004 the IVF with donation was illegal with this law. Now the law is changed.
Yeah.
And we think that there are some of donor conceived person, but we don't know how to find them. And could you give to us some advice? Because I tried, to do some live streaming and talking about that, but it's not so easy. And I also created some group, but wasn't I didn't find anyone. So do you think, because there are a lot of children born before the law, okay, so a lot of donor conceived adults, and
I mean, the truth is that the majority of them won't have been told.
Yeah, I think so.
That's the big problem. They won't have been told that they're donor conceived. I mean, I suppose the thing to do is, all you can do is raise awareness, and hope that some parents will change their minds, decide to be open. I mean, that's some of the work that both my husband and I have done together, is talking with parents of adults who have changed their minds and want to tell their children, but are terrified of doing so. So they need support in being open now. And also possibly catching, through raising awareness, people, young people who feel that they are somehow different within their family. And want to explore whether they might be donor conceived. So possibly need support in talking with their parents about it, or deciding to take a DNA test. Big step to take. Big steps.
Okay, I think this last question, before the most important question about your personal experience, and countries learn from each other. How will the approach to IVF with donation change in a quickly changing future, when new scientific information become easily available and globalization has a higher impact on each person? This is very complex, I understand, but what do you think?
Well, thank goodness we do learn from each other. I mean, I think one of the things we're certainly learning from largely experience in America, where there are huge numbers of half-sibling groups. And we really, really need to learn that is not a good idea.
I agree.
Donor-conceived people find it, well, it makes them feel like they belong to something, that they are something very strange. If they have so many half-siblings out there. This is not normal. It's not the size of a normal extended family group. Even I have to say in Italy, where maybe large extended family groups are, are more prevalent than in the UK, or certainly used to be. Much, much larger than anything you could ever imagine. So it's really important that sibling numbers are kept down to something manageable.
And I think it's also important to have a law,
Yes.
a law about IVF with donation. And so, everyone is protected by the law. I think that in US, for what I have understood, there aren't law about IVF, or there weren't in the past. So that was a problem. So it's important to avoid it, or in Italy too. Olivia, this is the most important question, is the last question, but I think it's not least. What was your story, Olivia, and your personal story, and why you decided to found the Donor Conception Network? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it goes back an awfully long time, because our oldest donor conceived child will be 38 in 2 months' time.
Okay.
And he is a father himself now.
Okay.
2 young children.
Okay.
So, we have a little dynasty here. But, it goes back to my husband and I discovering that he was probably seriously subfertile rather than completely infertile. I already had a child from my first marriage.
Okay.
And indeed, my husband learned that it was perfectly possible to love a child you're not genetically related to by, loving my son first.
Yeah.
So that was possibly helpful for him. But he is also a very generous man without the sort of ego that made it necessary for him to be the genetic father, if you like. So when we realized that using sperm donation would be the only way that we could have a child that I would carry together, he thought about it for a while. In fact, we had a sort of gestation period of about 9 months where we thought about it, and then we decided to go ahead with sperm donation. And I was lucky enough to conceive on the first insemination, and our son was born, and our daughter came along through a different donor. 3 years later.
Okay.
And as I say, we did make the very unusual decision to be open with our children.
Yeah.
But really, we didn't have any idea about how to do it.
You didn't receive any support because...
Oh my goodness, no. Because, our clinic, whilst not being like other clinics that actually sort of almost instructed people not to tell, we told our clinic that we were going to tell. And they just thought we were very strange. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Who's going to benefit from this? But we just felt that we couldn't possibly live family life with having that sort of secret at the heart. So we went ahead, and because we didn't have any materials, we didn't start to talk about it until our son was about 4 and started asking about where babies came from. So we, at that point, said, well, sometimes mummies and daddies are not able to make a baby together, and so they need a seed from another man to meet together with mummy's egg to make a baby. And that was how we started. When our children were let me think now. I think William was 9 and Susanna was 6. We were amazed to see an article in one of our newspapers about a woman in another city in the UK who, together with somebody else, had written a storybook for donor-conceived children. And so through the newspaper, we got in touch with her clinic who were publishing the book, and we were invited to come up to that city with the 2 other people who had also got in touch following that. And so the 5 families who were there met in this clinic in Sheffield in the UK. And the doctor basically said, well, you know, you are exceptional people. You all have the skills. Why don't you start a national organization?
It's incredible. Yeah, I think.
And it came from there, but I suppose it particularly came together when 3 months after that, the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC, invited us to join in the making of a film.
Yeah.
And so we made a film for the BBC, and there were about 80 families who got in touch with us afterwards, who said, oh, thank goodness, thank goodness, thank goodness, you know, I've been dying to talk to somebody about this. And the organization went from there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story, and we need to thank you for what you are doing, what you did, because it's very important for new countries to have the experience that you have and to bring your experience and to spread your experience abroad and in other country like Italy. So this was the reason, because I have really appreciated your availability to have this interview. It's very important for us, you know, and because we want that family doesn't feel alone anymore.
Absolutely. That is indeed one of the other things that, you know, we wanted to do right at the beginning, was to take away the terrible sense of being alone.
The loneliness.
The loneliness.
Yeah. So Olivia, thank you so much. And maybe after the registration, we can stay like 5 minutes more, 5 minutes. I stopped the registration. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.